here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, this video is going to have what I think is a pretty strong main point, but it's going to take me a few minutes to get there. I need to spell things out, explain them, give you some background before we can really hammer home what I think is a valuable takeaway that this video will provide. So we'll get there in a second. It's all about Sharks fans. It's all about this team being in a most unique and unprecedented spot than they've ever been before. I'm talking about the struggles on the ice as the franchise tries to retool, tries to rebuild. They've mostly had up years in their 30-plus seasons of existence, but lately, the last handful, they've been rough, and hopefully the turnaround is coming sooner than later. But because of all that, it's offering us an unprecedented opportunity to really see Sharks fans in a different light. Again, I will explain that in just a second. Let's go back, though, to really remember because, yeah, it's been a while since we were in the Sharks' heyday for basically a full decade. The end of the 2000s. To the end of the 2010s. Literally every season on opening night. As soon as the puck dropped and the season got underway, the playoffs were almost a given. You look at the roster, you look at the track record, you look at the coaching staff, you basically knew this was a machine to at least qualify for the playoffs and then contend every year and see how deep they could go, see how much health they could have, see how much luck they could run into, and try and get all the way to winning a Stanley Cup. Got to the Cup final in 2016. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a regret we'll look back on and say all those chances and just could not crack winning a Stanley Cup. But the playoffs were always a given, and quite honestly, look at other teams in other sports across the country and across the world. How many other franchises can say that for a strong decade, they were in those shoes every single year? The Sharks were also always buyers at the trade deadline, right? Having a good season, they made the financial commitments, they made the investments in the team to, all right, we're going to really push for it this year. However we can do it, we'll trade the pieces we have, and I do understand that may be what set them back in recent years with a little bit of a thinner pipeline. We'll talk about that in just a second. But they always went for it at the deadline. They never made the excuse and said, well, this isn't it. This isn't our year. We'll kind of go half in and see how this goes. They always went for it. You always got to see two Hall of Famers, two future Hall of Famers on the roster on any given night, Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau, for all of those years. And I put 2+. Maybe there will be a few others down the road that also get into the Hall of Fame. But I'm talking about two absolute first ballot Hall of Famers in Patty and Jumbo. The Sharks always had a huge home ice advantage. I mean, you try playing at the Tank back in those days, and as soon as you skate out as the visiting team, you already felt like you were against something. Not just the Sharks as an opponent, but all the fans. That building was a tremendous home ice advantage, and not to mention back in those days, opponents would come in maybe having already played a very tough LA Kings team, an Anaheim Ducks team, and then they'd come up north to face the Sharks, and it was kind of like the California gauntlet. I also want to mention here that keeping the roster together through all those years in a hard salary cap situation like the NHL, it's not easy because if everybody gets what they're truly worth on the open market, you can't keep your team together. And Doug Wilson, during his time as general manager, did get a lot of top-level players to buy in on a hometown discount. I think about the Joe Pavelskis of the world. He wanted to stay around and play for a team he loved and with teammates he loved and a place he loved and a logo that he loved, and he did it on a discount. Probably could have went and explored the free agent market even earlier, got more somewhere else. But a lot of players, and even free agents who never played for the Sharks, they wanted so badly to get in that they would come in on kind of a discounted contract. So that's how things were, right? And if you're a Sharks fan, you've only been around for a few years, I don't know how much of that you truly got to taste. Longtime Sharks fans know absolutely, though, what that was all about. But in recent times, it's been a lot different. The franchise is currently on their first ever 4-year playoff rut. And obviously this year, not looking great. Probably going to get to 5 years. The results have been historic. As in like last season, a record low amount of home wins during the regular season. Just low win totals, low point totals. A lot of historic stats that, quite honestly, I could break out here, but you already know them and I don't need to do that. We've also seen the attendance dip, right? Maybe the tank half full on a lot of nights. But there have been, like the Pittsburgh game recently, there have been those really good nights, and we do know the fan base is out there, but fluctuation, dips, all of the above, it's definitely noticeable. Also, roster instability. But look, that comes with a franchise that's trying to turn things around. There's not a lot of players that are sure things to stay forever at this point, as maybe there once was a handful of years ago. And I also want to point this out too. The Sharks are a business. The Bay Area is a marketplace. And a lot of fans want the opportunity to see the Golden State Warriors. We know their tremendous recent success. They have possibly basketball's best player in Steph Curry. Always interesting and entertaining. And how about the resurgence of the 49ers in the last few years? So the Sharks are competing, and not just for people to go to their games, but also flat-out sports attention in the Bay Area. They've got some competition, and they're struggling. They've always been in competition, but it's even rougher now that these other teams are doing quite well during their season. I should mention that. You'd say, well, why isn't anything else on there? The Warriors and 49ers play their season during the hockey season. So they are direct competition for the sports fan that's out there. So all of these things kind of going against the Sharks. But let me point out right now, in terms of fans, and this is the point I wanted to make, the very best Sharks fans are on display right now. Let me repeat that. The very best Sharks fans are on display right now. The Sharks fans you see out there caring about the team, invested in the team, and I'm not even saying they have to go to a certain amount of games or watch that many on TV or whatever. There is no quantification in numbers, or there's no tangible thing I'm trying to throw out there that says this qualifies you as a fan. It's not that. We'll get into what I think is a good Sharks fan in a second here, but the very best Sharks fans are on display right now. Why is that? Because all of the casual Sharks fans, all of the fair weather Sharks fans, the ones that were around during last decade when winning was easy and everybody gravitates to winning, they've kind of dispersed a little bit. Look, that happens. It's not to say the Sharks are a bandwagon franchise by any means. Every team and every sport has this effect. When you're good, there's a crowd. When you're struggling, or in this case, when you're rebuilding, that crowd kind of spreads out a little bit. Those potential fans are still out there. You just maybe don't see them as much. So in the struggle, it makes the better Sharks fans, the very best Sharks fans, just a little bit easier to see because they are present. And so you might wonder, well, what do I consider the good Sharks fans right now? You know what? Good Sharks fans can absolutely still be frustrated. This doesn't mean that you just love the team, good or bad, win or lose. No, it's not that. Good Sharks fans can be angry at the team, can be totally, just not livid, but, they could be, can't stand it. I want to get out of this. I want to get back to the good old days. Absolutely, you can be. Good Sharks fans these days ask hard questions. This move, this player, that deal, this draft pick, all the above. That's great conversation. That's what good fans want to do, is look at every last detail and figure out how to turn this thing around. Maybe back in the day, all the small details weren't as necessary or important. But here and now, they absolutely are. And it's not to make things personal. I'm just saying asking the hard questions, very fair for a good Sharks fan right now. A good Sharks fan also understands the difference between instant results and the bigger picture of getting the process right. What do I mean by that? Hypothetically, let's say San Jose racks off 5 wins in a row. Okay, that's great, and that'll make everybody feel better, and that'll paint a different picture of how things are going. But a good Sharks fan is more concerned with the process. How are they playing? Is this sustainable? Have they finally turned a corner? Have they identified some of the young players and talent that they hope are the next big thing? It's more about the process of becoming a sustainable NHL winning team again than it is trying to get a win here or there, or trying to, get to 12 road wins in 2 months or whatever, however you want to qualify it. The process is way more important than the night-to-night results, which a good fan understands. And like I said, yeah, you should be watching the youth, understanding the Barracuda, how they're doing, what players are coming up, What's Will Smith doing in college this season? Who are the next upcoming draft players to watch? Where could San Jose land in terms of a draft pick? Who might they get next time around? And so I feel like a good Sharks fan also gets that you are paying for this now. And I don't mean like buying tickets or buying a jersey. It's not that. I mean, hey, keep it up if you are. My point is that you're paying for winning now by rebuilding, retooling. Nobody likes to renovate their house. I mean, they love living in it afterwards, but they don't like the demolition or the construction contractor saying, well, it's going to take an extra 3 weeks. Nobody likes that part, but you love it when it gets done, and especially when it gets done the right way. This is the part that a good Sharks fan understands, that they are paying into this now for the gain of it later and hopefully to get back to where they were for many years down the road. So I went way too long on that, like 10 minutes to make one point that at this juncture, in these years, in these months, and however long this lasts, and hopefully we're starting to see the tide turn. Get it? Sharks reference. It's so easy right now to identify the very best Sharks fans. The ones that care, the ones that are dedicated, and the ones that are hopefully rewarded the most when this team does turn it around, and they'll say that they saw it through the entire time. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.